Hey there, risers and thrivers. Welcome back to the penultimate episode of Season 2, which is a bit different from the usual, much like the Mother's Day episode, because this one is dedicated to all the fathers that are on the up and up in their careers and lives, as well as the fathers that are doing their best to ensure that their children have a brighter future. Before I jump into this episode, I'd like to introduce myself to those of you that are new here. Welcome, I'm Janine, the founder and creator of this podcast, On the Up and Up, which was created to encourage critical conversations, amplify the untold stories and achievements of the underrepresented and underestimated, and inspire visionaries to pursue their dreams. And joining me on this very special Father's Day episode is Alain Missala, who is the founder and CEO of Zula, the inclusive library for children, and founder of Black Dads Germany, a community to connect, empower, and support Black men as they go through fatherhood. In this episode, we'll discuss Alain's motivation for creating the Black Dads Germany community, the influence of role models and the lack thereof, and the importance of creating memories and faith. Let's jump straight into the episode. So Alain, thank you so much for joining me. Let's jump straight into your journey with building Black Dads Germany. How did it start?
My firstborn was born in 2006. So by that time, I'm really at a different level of my life became like a little bit like, okay, 2004, I'm in Germany. 2006, I have this kid. And 2007, I landed my first job. And I'm still trying to figure it out. Trying to figure out all these, right? So from 2007 to 2020, right, where basically Black Dads Germany started, I went through even understanding what it is to be a dad first. My dad wasn't around, so you are not really prepared to understand what it is, right? You go with the flow, but you strongly believe in your heart that love is going to support you. Love is going to help you understand what it means to be a dad. So that's like the first layer. And then you have the second layer, which is, oh, you are a Black male, but now you're even a Black father in a context of Germany in 2006. So you really have those years where I'm basically alone, isolated, right? So now what is very interesting in my story is that, my grandfather became my father. So he became the role model. So what I've seen home was, okay, you are going to be having to be very resilient. Family is all that matters, no matter, and families are always dysfunctional. So,
oh Lord,
no matter what is happening there, but you have to set your priorities, right? And those priorities are when you have a child, you cannot take yourself sometimes out of the picture, right? So now I understand a lot of people will say, yeah, but you can forget about it. It's not about that. It's not about forgetting yourself. It's really about setting up your priorities. So you have, exactly. So you have the strongest, the highest, and then I would say the biggest or the highest priority in your life, right? Challenge that you have, which is raising a child. And we're not talking about raising a child in a tribe. Right? In Germany, it's not about that. It's raising a child by yourself.
It's very individualistic in comparison.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you really are everything for that child.
Exactly. Yeah. And so because I was so isolated, and then what is interesting is 2020, 2018, my daughter is born. So I have two boys and I have, my daughter, and she's born in 2018. So there's a huge gap, right? And a lot really happened to me, not just as a father, but as a person, right? And as a Black male in Germany. So 2020 and from 2018 to 2020, I'm thinking, wow, it feels like I am the only dad in this country.
So even despite the fact that you had two children prior to your daughter, you still felt like you didn't have that community of Black fathers around you. Okay.
And what is interesting with that is that the isolation is not even happening just because you leave your space, right? You leave your apartment, you go out, but the isolation is even also happening inside the communities. Why is that happening? Because what does it mean? It really means that in the communities, when you go in the Black communities, it's not about, okay, we are now going to be having a specific topic about whatever topic that is a challenge in your life, like being a Black dad. What is the Black dad experience in Germany? And now if you look at the context, in Berlin, it's not like you've been in London where you will have a huge community of Igbo. From Nigeria, you will have a huge community of whatever it is, right? In Germany, you will have those communities where a lot of Black people are coming, and Blackness itself, it's already so tricky.
That's the thing.
And you cannot really define it in just, okay, they are Black, that means they are having the same experience. So you have those different layers, and in those different communities where you go, and then you have Afro-Caribbean, African, African-American, African.
Which are all very distinctly different experiences. And
right.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head on exactly, like, so my research was always on intersectionality, but I always looked at it from a lens of women of color and everything else. But you're hitting it from another lens where I never looked at research from that perspective, right? From a male, Black male, being a migrant in the country that you're residing in. Then you've got the added element of fatherhood. And let's be honest, you have, some would say being a man is a privilege, but then you also have the complexities of being a Black man.
Yeah.
In Germany, where that comes with a lot of stigma and stereotypes and even assumptions around how you will behave as a father, so to say. You're also dealing with the challenges of being a migrant here. And it's just everything culminating into one. So it's a very unique and distinct experience. It's not comparable.
It's not. And in the community, in the Black Dads Germany community, we have these. When we talk about microaggression, for example, there's one thing that will always be common to anyone is we call it the look.
Okay. What do you mean by the look?
The look is the way they look at you. Okay. Really like they, right? So the way they look at you.
Let's unpack that a little bit.
And it's really something that is so common because we have these really WhatsApp group that became so large and it's growing bigger and bigger. We now have like 250 dads in that community. And Black Dads Germany started with the WhatsApp group. So it's so organic. And although we have those different backgrounds and different cultures and so on and so forth, there is something that is so much common is the isolation. Every time someone new is coming in the WhatsApp group, the one thing that I always hear is, I am so happy that I found a family. Now I know I am not alone anymore. And I felt like that for 16, 17 years in this country.
That's tough. You know what's interesting about this, because this resonates with me about another conversation that I had with General for Men. I realized for women, there's groups for everything. Yeah. Like, we have groups for everything. I think the moment you find out even if you're going to find out that you're pregnant, there's about 15 groups that you could probably join with other women to talk about your experiences with. But then even if I talk about the context externally, not necessarily related to parenthood, but as a woman living abroad, you've got like International Women in Berlin, and there's a ton of groups. There's even
for cooking, for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
For everything.
But I remember talking to oh God, I'm forgetting the name of her startup. Her name is Cynthia, and she has a company here, or like a organization here in Berlin that does like dinners for women.
Yeah.
And then someone had brought up to her like, oh, why don't you guys like do this for our boyfriends or something? And then I started realizing through that conversation with her, she brought up men are very isolated a lot of the times because you don't have these groups, these places to go just to talk. It's not normal like it is for women for us to have these things. And so this conversation of isolation is definitely, I think, prevalent among men. I think it's also a major part of why I think there's also a growing gap between men and women and understanding one another. And research is showing that by generation, men or women seem to be going in opposite directions.
Definitely.
Because this isolation topic is really a big one. So I can only fathom for these men who are also fathers and Black men in Germany trying to navigate all of that. Yeah. It's a lot.
It's a lot, navigating all of that. And especially when my daughter was born. Like, and every time when I talk about it, people are like, oh, that's interesting. So you have to have a a daughter to start something like that. And then I said, no, it's not about that, right? I didn't have to wait for her. It's really sometimes about, and this is what I understand about our community, it's about where are you at the moment where, when you decide to do whatever you want to do, right? When you figured out, okay, what is really your mission? When you figured out, okay, where do you want to be in 10, 20 years, right? And we have that in different segments of our life. And when I look at our community of Black dads, I know for sure, for a fact, that most of the dad, the reason why they sometimes are not so active, right, in the way where I can be today, has a lot to do with where are you standing financially, right? Where are you right now? When did you even come to Germany and how? Right? Those are questions that we don't always ask. And we're not just talking about Black Germans. It's a different case. And then you also have to figure out, okay, well, is this person a single dad per se, or is that person really having the kind of support that the person is supposed to be having? Like, okay, the person has partner and they all understand what it means. So you have so many different factors coming into the game. So what it means is, and I always say that, and I always say in the community, okay, the reason why I want to basically activate the dads to take on the role that they already have anyway in the family, which is making sure that you are a role model, not just the role model, because I believe that being the role model is part of this parenthood, right? Is the mom and is the dad. So you do what you have to do as a role model in the constellation. It doesn't matter if you guys are together. It doesn't matter if life is life. When life is kicking in, whatever happens, you kind of have to figure out that, okay, as I said at the beginning, the highest priority is the child. Yeah. So activating them really means that, hey, forget a little bit about your situation. Right? Forget about the fact that you don't have that job that you want to land. Forget about the microaggressions. I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm saying don't let that take so much space. Don't let that be so noisy in your head that you forget what the priority is. And the priority is you have to be happy, right? You have to reach certain milestones. Well, because when you look at the goal that you're setting to yourself and then you say, okay, I'm not there yet, you have to be able to say, I'm happy I'm not where I used to be yesterday.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you're bringing up, because you're basically saying, of course, you've got your life circumstances and everything, but don't let that take away from your role in your child's life as the parent, being the role model for them. And I didn't grow up with a father in my life, so I don't have the comparison there, but I do think back to my mom. And I know she always kind of says, like, oh, it was like I blinked and then all of a sudden you were a teenager and like about to move out of the house. Yeah. And she's like, I wish I could have been there for you more. And I feel for me, I think she really was there as much as she could. Like when she was there, she was fully focused on me. Yeah. But I also know that the circumstances that I grew up in did not allow her to always be around or have that much time for me, you know, like she had to work multiple jobs at one point. Like I was always raised with babysitters. And so a lot of that contributed to my level of independence that I have now. Yes. But that, I would say, it didn't take away from her being that role model to me, that I could just see that she would have wanted to do more, but she couldn't. And so I can empathize with those fathers who think to themselves like, oh, I'm not where I want to be, especially because I know for men, typically men are interesting to me in the sense where even if you think of them like when they want to get married, I feel like men tend to marry whoever's kind of around at the time when they're ready because they've achieved. I know that sounds like great to say, but I feel like men are always like, well, once I achieve this thing and I've got this career and this job and this house, then I'm ready to settle down. And women are like, I don't need all of that just yet. I can build that with my partner. And so it sounds like the same thing with being a father.
No, there's something there. There's something there. I remember, so we have this so-called Black Dads brunch, right? So, and the Black Dads brunch is getting really successful. It's been successful. We've been doing that for the past like 6-7 months now. And it's called a brunch because somehow I was trying to figure out, okay, how do we create a room where we can bring all these dads together and start having topics, right? And talk about some of the stuff that we want to talk about. So one of the topic was really like around what you're saying right now. Why do we feel as Black males so responsible sometimes? Like we want to have to provide.
Culturally, though,
there's something there, right? There's something there. So if I take my own example, I've been a father before even being a father. So what does it mean? My sister is like 14 years old, younger than me, right? So she's the largest child of my mom, and she's born, I'm 17, I'm already taking care of her. I'm 20, I'm already hustling, doing a lot of stuff to bring money. So now you're wired in a very different way. It's very interesting to me because that is happening by the time where I am 16, my dad is absent from the moment I'm 4 years old to 16, right? So, and then my dad reappear again in my life, and a week later he's saying, hey, let us meet, I want to get to know you, and some stuff like that. But a week later, he's sick, he dies. Really?
Jeez, okay.
And I don't have any kind of relationship with him. I can't relate, but I know that it's painful. It's really, really painful because all that time I thought maybe he's dead already. Maybe, I don't know, whatever is happening in his life. Okay, it's all right. I'll try to figure it out. I'm 13. I'm taking the second last name that I have is from my grandfather because he's my role model. He's my father. I love the man so deeply. So I just went to him and said, hey, I want to have your name. That's why my name became so long. So we went through the process. I'm taking the name of my grandfather. So 2 years later, my grandfather dies. So I when I'm becoming a dad, I'm still looking for that role model that can just, when I have questions, when I don't know what I have to do, when I'm confused by so many different things that I don't understand, but I have no one. So I turn into listening to different people, Nelson Mandela, Muhammad Ali, and so on and so forth. So I'm getting my education everywhere else than just in my family, right? But it's, again, I was raised by very strong women, right? That's all right. But the way we feel sometimes, going back to what you were saying, is we cannot have to provide all the time. So we have to understand, now we're learning in those moments and in those rooms that we're creating, like the branch, that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay if you can't. It's okay if your partner can do more than you sometimes, or she can provide, or she's even earning more money than you. It's okay, because what counts is how much time you're really spending with the child, how much time you're really giving. Like, that is something that is so invaluable because you can put a price tag into it. So how much love you want to give to that child. So that's what the Black Dads Germany is about. It's really about activating and deconstructing some of these, the mindsets, especially from those coming from the continent. And then I've learned through the time, you would tell me what your experience is. One thing that I've done for myself, and the reason why I've done it so early in my life, when I was 13, to take the name of my grandfather, is to understand that the story of my father is not mine. It was never mine. He has done his own part, which is bringing me into this world. What is my story? And then the second thing that I've done for myself when I was 13 is to forgive my father. By forgiving my father, I was forgiving myself for not being that child that I thought I have to be, that has to be loved by a father. And then I have to look around me, understand that my mom is giving me that love. My aunties, there's a tribe giving me so much love. My grandfather is giving me so much love. What about that, right? So why do I have to just be fixated to
on this particular
person? And that has been like the motor, the fuel in the motor of my life, because it just gave me the opportunity to separate myself from the pain. It doesn't mean that the pain is not there, right? It's still there, but I can work on it.
Fair. Very mature of you.
I can work on it every time the pain's trying to kick in. Right?
I think well, first of all, I think what you're doing with Black Dads Germany is beautiful, in that you're creating this safe space for men to have these conversations. And I know you now, with working with you a lot with Sula, and you're such a funny person and such an open person that you can definitely get a conversation going, even with someone who's super shy and doesn't want to talk about something. So I love that you're the one who's facilitating these brunches to get these conversations going, because I do think it's something that men in general need to have. But I think it's very beautiful that you're able to at least bring it to this particular group of men to have this conversation. And I also really, because one of my questions too, which we can unpack in a moment, was going to be, how do you think the role of fatherhood, or the lack thereof, but getting it through your grandfather, impacted your entrepreneurial journey? Hey there. Before Alain answers that question, I wanted to ask, what do you think so far? Feel free to share your perspective by leaving a comment or review. Also, it would mean the world to me if you could spare a second to like, follow, and or subscribe to this podcast wherever you're currently listening to it. Now, back to the episode.
If I look at it, they both, my grandfather and my grandmother, but I always start with my grandfather. Leadership for me today, right, is into actions. Like you saw me, we went to the, to the festival, and I was the one out there.
Well, let me clarify to people what you're referring to.
I didn't want to throw it in the...
No, but you do lead by example, right? Because I know I've worked in organizations where like bosses be like, oh yeah, go out there, talk to people, but they themselves will never go out there and talk to people. And when I tell you this man was leading the charge to let the whole festival know about Zula, you really were. You did not sit down once.
No.
The rest of us were sitting there, we ate, we drank. You come back, quick 15-minute chat, he's on his way out again. So truly leading by example.
And I've learned that from my grandfather. And now, we can put a lot of words in some of this stuff, and then it makes us feel good, right? So, but leading by example through actions, to me, it's about being humbled. So humble that you look around you, there is a greater purpose, right? And when that purpose is tied to your personal story and to your life, your journey, your life journey, which is, not having a father and being a father. So what my father didn't know, what he gave to me was understanding what it means, how important it is to be a father. So now the comparison is pretty much easier, right? From someone that wasn't there to someone that has to be there all the time. So that's pretty easy to do. But it doesn't stop there. So if I tag that to my grandfather took care of so many different kids. He took care of me. I wasn't his child. He took care of some other children. So the house was full all the time. And this guy didn't have money. What he had was love. So now if people are wondering why I'm bringing so many people in and they always do something, and people ask themselves, how is it possible? Right?
I was about to get to that too.
It's really because he understood that when you do something with your heart and you pour so much love into it. And what is love, right? If you look at a plant, it's really the best example of how you can make either a project or someone or whatever it is that has life dies if you don't all the time pour some water into it. And love is that's what love is about. It's not like you have a specific day and then you decide to just throw that love at somebody. It's every single day, in your words, in your actions. It's also like taking time to self-reflect on what people are telling you, because you will hurt people without even wanting to hurt people. But how much do you understand that they still love you? Even when you do, and then you have to understand that if you forgive yourself, you can still love them, and then you just keep it on, doing what you have to do. So love is really that process of every single day pouring like water, on that plant to see how the plant is growing. So, and in every single project that I've been doing, two things: resilience, love. And I would say there is a spiritual virtue that I will add on top of it: gratitude.
That's important.
It's so important. And those are the things that I've learned from my grandfather, right? But now what I've learned from my grandmother was even bigger than that. I've learned how to hustle. My grandmother was the one that is taking care of finance in the house. She will be the one that will, we have a plantation, she will bring stuff from the plantation and so on and so forth. And we as children will be helping her to sell some of this stuff, children, sell some of this stuff so that the money keep on coming into the house and so on. And she was someone that would wake up early in the morning. So what I've heard, like every time I talk about it, people are like, why is it that you always wake up at 5:30, 6, and then you sleep like 5 hours? I'm like, I don't need 20 hours to sleep. Like the 5 hours, the reason why I can do it is because when she wakes up in the morning, she's already on the go, right? At the end of the day, I will sleep. But the day starts in the first 6 hours of the day to me. And those are the hours where I would do the math. And that I learned that from my grandmother. Like, that's why I was talking to a friend the last time, and then also in his podcast, he was like, man, you're doing so many different things. I just wonder how you do all of these things all the time. You have these.
Facts, though. You really do a lot.
Yes. And he was like, how do you do that? And I say, yeah, well, because I divide my day into 2 or 3 days. Simple as that.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is a day is 24 hours. The first 6 hours, I have a specific goal that I want to reach. I have specific stuff that I want to do. So if I wake up early, and the first thing that I always do, and trust me, that's so much important, it's not about being religious, it's about being spiritual, right? First thing I always do, I'll stretch my body first, but then I'll kneel down, do my prayers. And then I'll wake up. Just like this morning, I'll go and do my hour of running. So if I wake up at 5, if I wake up at 5, like the energy that is already there because I've been going into that process, and that process has to become a routine. My grandmother was waking every single day, 4 a.m.
I can't even fathom. I can't.
4 a.m. in the morning, right? By the time where we wake up, and then we all wake up, we're now getting ready and so on. She's already done with most of the time, and it's like, okay, you take this. And my mom did the same when she didn't have enough money anymore. I would wake up at 5 a.m. with my mom and doing what people call today peri-peri. And some stuff like that, and we'll be selling it because he used to teach at school. So, and then I would take those stuff and start selling them when we have a break at school. So, this is what made me the person that I am today.
What I like about what you've said is it really points to the part of role models, right? Because I think for a while when I was growing up, the thought of not having my dad around felt like a deficit to me. Like, it felt like, some people are born with whole, they've got the whole package. And somehow I was born with like 80% of it. And like there was a 20% that was really lacking. But as we talk, and it made me realize, like, as I've grown up with time, I was able to get that water for the plant or fill that deficit through other areas. It was the fathers of my friends who were role models to me, or even the pastor at church, like, and his wife who would take me and I would be with their kids on like Wednesdays and Sundays and stuff like that. And realizing that it was also coming from other sources. And while, biologically my father wasn't around, you could still get a lot of lessons, a lot of learnings, and still be full and whole from others. And the saying, it does take a village, it really does. Whether you literally have a community of people because you're living in a place where that is normal, or you're living in a more individualistic society like in Germany, you are taking in from all of those other sources. And it reminds me a lot, because people oftentimes I hear the saying, like, you can't be what you can't see, which I don't fully I don't fully agree with it, because I do think that I didn't see what I am today growing up,
That's a very interesting perspective.
And so I think to myself, and you can also look at it on a negative way, like people who unfortunately fall into like, drugs or bad behaviors, but they never grew up in such an environment, but maybe were exposed and got caught up in the wrong lifestyle. It's not like they saw that, maybe they just happened to fall into it, unfortunately, didn't find their way. But where I bring it back to is, I think you can become what you can't see if you've got the right examples around you to show it, right? Because times change so fast. The opportunities change. A job of what I have, a venture architect, didn't exist, I think, like 10 years ago. Nobody knew what the hell a venture architect was, right? But it was the resilience that my mom showed me. It was the consistency. It was this drive to be able to do it. So maybe I am being what I couldn't see in that sense through her like values. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but you get what I'm saying, right?
I get what you're saying. I get that's very interesting because I remember when I started working on Zola, that's the phrase that I use. You can't be what you can't see, right? But now that you're saying that, it's a very way of also looking at it on the other side, right? It's like a mirror. So on the other side, what do you see? Well, if you don't see anything, well, what's going to happen to me? You know, how do we make it possible? So what we don't want to say right now is that absentees, it's like giving a pass to absentees fathers, right? We don't want to do that. But again, going back to why is that important to have fathers? We had a very interesting podcast, Black Dads Germany podcast at the very beginning, where we invited a therapist that is working with a lot of young children and so on and so forth. It was so interesting to listen to his research and what they've done, what research is saying. And it was like, it's very important for for children, black children, young black children, but male, to have a father in their lives. And the reason why the research really said that has to happen is because of things like leadership. On the other side, the research is saying black female, or not just black female, but female already tend to have that kind of leadership, you know, in the way they understand the world around them. And it was really, pretty much for me, really fascinating and very interesting, right? And he was also saying that most of the children, not just black children, but all the children that he's seen and working with, that he didn't have a father figure or a person, really a caregiver, a male caregiver in the house, they really tend to be in trouble.
Oh, I agree with you. And I what I was saying is also, I'm not trying to discount the importance of having those things around. I was just saying for the kids or the people who've grown up who felt like they had a deficit, don't feel like you have that much of a deficit, because there are other places that you can get it, and you might have to actively go get it on your own. I do think it is such a privilege to be able to grow up in a two-parent household and have both of them around if they're in a very healthy dynamic. Yeah. If it's not the case, though, don't feel like you're less than, because I know that was, my mom even brought it up when me and her were doing the podcast as well. We sometimes felt like people would look down on us because she was a single mom and they had their two-parent households, right? But honestly, and I don't say this to spite these people or be a jerk, but I do remember a few vivid cases of them looking down on my mom and I, kind of like, oh my God, like the typical black single mom, and looking down on us. If I compare where I'm in life with their kids, I'm doing just fine in comparison. Oh, yes. And so that's why it's like, I want other people to know, like, it is possible. And even though I did not have what I could not see, I had a goal in mind. I didn't know how I want to get to those goals. But I had certain values instilled in me, which I'm so grateful from. I had a mom who was a mother and a father in a lot of ways, and I got father figures from others that could shape me into who I am today. Now, don't get me wrong. I am very adamant that my kids are growing up with a dad. So
they have to, right?
Whether they want it, there's going to have to be some extenuating circumstances why this man will not be in their lives.
Well, that's very important. That's
I don't care where he goes. We're going.
Yes. You know, you got to put that on the, you know, you have your priorities. So it has to happen. It's very important. It's very important. So I love what I can relate with what you're saying there, right? Because, of course, when you're a child and a teenager, you cannot just create your own tribe. So the family has to be there. You know, you have to kind of, there are resources that you have to find, right? But those resources, they have to be, you know, the family has to provide for those resources until the child is not a child anymore, you know, it's not a teen anymore. So one thing I'm always saying to the dad is, not only you're never always going to be there. So let's put it mathematically. How much time do we have in a day, and how much time we're really spending with our kids? They're spending 8 hours in a different space where we are not. In Germany.
School,
they come home. Oh, you're going to have to do Hausaufgabe, all of these things, and then we eat together, and then you go to sleep. Now, is for a family that seems to be functional, they're together. Now you're not even together. So what do you think? So what you have to do, what you need to do, and what you must do is to create memories.
Wow, I just had a nice aha moment as you were talking because of the term memories, because obviously the whole goal of this episode was to kind of talk about on the up and up and like the father figures that influence us being on the up and up, but also just the people around us that really help us in our make us who we are and how we can impact other people becoming who they are. And what you said about memories just kind of all of a sudden clicked to me, because when I was talking to my mom, I was like, yeah, it was those little moments on a Friday where me and you would sit together and just like pull out the bed in the living room and then sit there and watch movies from like Friday to Sunday, eat Chinese food and just hang out. That is like one of the core memories that I remember. Or even, and I brought it up on that episode too, like we were broke. Like, we were broke. And I remember being so stressed out as a kid. And my mom was just like, well, like, hopefully she doesn't get mad that I share this story, but like the electricity got turned out, or we were like on the verge of like getting, kicked out of our apartment.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like stressed as a kid. I mean, I'm like 8, 9 years old. I'm like, and then my mom would come into the house and I'd be like crying or stressed out. My mom was just like, and I'm sure she was stressed too, right? But to me, she was showing something else. And I still remember to this day, she'd always say like, God will provide.
Yes.
And I used to and I said this on the other episode, I would be like, yo, God had to provide 2 weeks ago. And I wait, where are these provisions? Because I'm waiting for I'm waiting to be provided for, But it was something about, and then after that, she would say, well, but do you want to order pizza? And I'm like, we don't have money and you want to order pizza. And then she looked at me and she looked at me and she goes, well, listen, this $10 that we're going to spend on the pizza can't pay for the electricity anyway. So we can turn some candles on. So we have some lights. We'll order the pizza. We'll enjoy our evening. Or we could sit here and cry with the $10. And there was something about that memory, but also the mentality, the resilience, the way that she handled it that influences me. And the faith. And exactly. That influences me to this day. That no matter what I do, I'm not scared.
You can. Yeah. I mean, this is where life shows you how much you can do, right? When you face someone, and I have a lot of respect for your mom. I don't know her, and a really big props to her for raising the beautiful woman that you are, and a really strong woman that you are. But like the faith and. There are 2 things that saved me, basically, right? Apart from the fact that I have my grandfather, the big family, the tribe, and so on. And that's why I'm building tribes, because it's just all coming from there. So, but there's one thing. It was music, really music. Like, I've listened to music and I start playing, instrument, and I'm autodidact. I learn everything by doing, all of the instrument I'm playing a lot of them. It's just me, like, sitting and doing stuff. When I say I want to do it, I would do it. So, but that was music and the faith. So faith was like, and someone asked me, okay, what would be if someone takes something from you, and what would be the thing that would make you feel like there is no reason for you anymore to just keep on going? I say faith. If you take it away from me, if someone will have really the power of taking faith away from me, then I wouldn't have any reason anymore to do whatever I'm doing. That became the really fundamentally like the reason why things that are happening right now that have been there in my head for so many years, and I was like, I'm not really quite ready yet. I just keep up, do whatever you have to do. I know all these moments. Sometimes I didn't have money. Sometimes I couldn't pay for electricity. Sometimes I couldn't pay for my apartment. Sometimes I would stay hungry because I have to send the money to my mom and my sister. Like, when I look back, like, faith was really that solid foundation. Right, to keep on going. So big props to your mom, because this is what it is. This is what it is. So every time she created those memories, and every time she really just wanted to make sure that you don't see that she's tripping, like she's stressed, Like, and this is and that's our role. When we talk about role model, right? So what does it mean? What does it mean exactly? What does it mean? Sometimes, every time
Everyone
it's
just drops it.
like,
Yeah. Self-explanatory. Role model.
Yeah, I was a role model. I'm like, what does that mean every single day, right? Every minute and every single day, what does it mean, right? And that's what it means. It means in those moments where, someone has to step up. Someone has to say, it's all right. You have to have the ability, because we all have it. You have to find in yourself the ability to say, I'm going to do something that is impossible. I always still wake up in the morning and believe and have the faith that it's going to happen. If it's not today, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, you fall down again. You go like, if it's not today, it's tomorrow. Every single day.
Yeah.
And that day will come.
It will.
Your time will come. The day will come. So creating memories, to me, is core to everything that I'm doing.
Well, there you have it, folks. If it's not today, it's tomorrow. And make sure to create memories each day. Thank you so much, Alain, for taking the time to join me to share your mission to change the narrative around Black fathers while creating a space for them to come together and be vulnerable. This episode left me with a lot of food for thoughts for both myself on a personal level, but also on a professional level, and I hope it was the same for all of you. So thank you all again for tuning in for this episode, and I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast on your favorite streaming and social media channels. I'll be back in 2 weeks with the final episode of season 2, so in the meantime, onwards and upwards, y'all, and I'll speak to you then.